BlackRock filing for an iShares Bitcoin Premium Income ETF. Different than the things they've offered before. A ton of stuff coming out the last couple of days, by the way. Stablecoins in hot water. There's multiple stories here that are calling into question the stablecoin economy in a big way, actually. And so I really, really am excited to get into those stories. The stablecoin conversation is without a doubt going to be the biggest, because that is the decision that Wall Street has made, that this will be the vehicle in which they get things done. And because they'll be using stablecoins, there's going to be a whole lot of trouble. The SEC is investigating a couple things that are going on. We have the Trump family, World LibertyFi, allocating 100% of their treasury liquidity fees for one specific goal. You're gonna love that one. It's a really interesting one. We've got Circle coming out, potentially able to reverse transactions from USDC, which is like cool. That sounds great for like the average retail person, but this is so far away from where we've come and the goals of crypto and all these things. And so I'm just trying to figure out exactly what the angle is here. I want to see where the co-opting is happening. And there's just some fascinating stories. So if you guys haven't already, please do retweet the stream. We're going to dive right into these stories. You got the BlackRock one pulled up right here. You can see the announcement coming out from Bitcoin News. Shout out to those guys. We'll jump to the story here on Yahoo. BlackRock's $12.5 billion Bitcoin ETF files shakes the markets. Is disapproval imminent is the story they're rolling with. But yeah, they're moving from just pure price exposure to ensuring yield now for Bitcoin, which we always knew was coming, right? So they just filed this application for a new one. And this is specifically for expanding the institutional exposure for digital assets by jumping into the yield side of things. And this is where a lot of people are going to get excited, but a lot of people are going to get nervous. This is the big one, right? BlackRock is the big guy. And if now that BlackRock has decided they're entering the yield game, now the top is blown off, right? And this is something we've talked about so many times. We've talked about this a million times, is that there's too much Bitcoin being lended out. If every institution is lending out Bitcoin, some buying because somebody doesn't have the Bitcoin, because there's only so much. And, the amount of Bitcoin that's being transacted right now is enormous. And I don't know who holds it. We don't have, if everyone had proof of reserves, then maybe it could work. But then I'm not sure how good the yield would be. And so it's tough because all the yield instruments of the past have been based on fiat and have allowed and wanted to, and, sort of catered toward a terrible money. And now that we have Bitcoin, we'll see how it goes down. I'm very nervous. I don't know how it will play out. I just know that everyone's going to start lending and BlackRock is leading the way. Let's move to the next story here. We have Trump-backed World LibertyFi passed a proposal to allocate 100% of treasury liquidity fees for buybacks and burns, with implementation starting this week. So this is crazy, dude. 100% of liquidity fees go to buybacks and burns. This is something a lot of people have talked about as being a potential solution for maintaining value over time for these crypto projects. It'll be one of those things that, if you're able to kind of push off being wrecked as long as you can until you find a business model that's revenue generating, then I guess it's probably a good idea. Like these, they're basically earning fees for everything going on their platform, and it's got to be something crazy, like so much money, honestly. And they're just going to take it and then buy back every single time. This actually is probably bullish, to be honest. If they're taking 100% of these and this is going to continue on, we'll see what happens if this continues to be like a thing or if they change their mind. But we'll see what happens. Currently, they have a circulating supply of 24 billion. Burning 10% of the supply, or around 2.4 billion tokens, would take around 564 days under the current schedule. So it's kind of like the time table you're looking at if you're in World LibertyFi. Interesting stuff coming out from the president. We've got the Dutch government to consider the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, the tweet was deleted, which I thought was interesting. I don't know what that means exactly, but I went to MEXC and they posted this story. Now, you guys can say what you want about MEXC. I'm not going to sit here and defend them all exactly, but, MEXC, they put out this story, Bitcoin Voice in the Netherlands. They're talking about the Dutch government considering the creation of the strategic Bitcoin reserve alongside their gold reserves. And I went on a podcast just yesterday in New York. I actually saw Netanyahu get in his car. I was there and the UN was there at the same time. And I was shooting a podcast with Yahoo. And we were talking about, these things. And this is one of my main points, is that Bitcoin and crypto have separated. There's two swaths. There's people trying to make money right now, and there's people trying to store their money in something that's not going to lose over time against inflation. That's the two conversations for the most part. And the Bitcoin people are generally in that conversation. And it just seems to be that the crypto people are more concerned with making more money, especially in these cycles, right? And that's fine. It is what it is. It goes one way or the other. What my point is that the Bitcoin conversation for investors needs to move where I'm like, look, Bitcoin either is or is not a treasury asset. It either is or is not something you put next to gold, right? I don't believe any of these other cryptos can fall into that category. I think that just belongs to Bitcoin. But it's worth having the conversation because, I mean, it's like one of those things where, guys, it's 2025. Bitcoin's at over $100,000. How long are normal people, how long can we let them keep saying, like, it's just another crypto? Like, isn't that this thing? Like, at some point, you're like, brother, it's a $2 trillion market cap. It's worth more than all these. What are you like? Why are you like? Give us respect. What do you mean? So I don't know. I don't know. I got hyped up. I got hyped up over these things. I banged my hand on the table about this point though in the podcast. Is like the conversation has to update. Like we are now in Wall Street Bitcoin. We can't keep calling it crypto. Like there's too many crypto rails that are happening, and in Wall Street they're all over the place right now. And in fact, there's a couple stories here that I'm going to show you here in just a second. That's going to explain exactly why I think it's important, really important. The Blackrock, or sorry, not the Blackrock. Well, that's funny because BlackRock will probably own all the Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, and then there's all these other crypto. There's exchanges. There's the crypto stablecoin companies. There's so many of these guys coming out, which is great. They can do their thing. It's just people need to remember that Bitcoin is not a company. Bitcoin has no CEO. Bitcoin is a protocol dropped for a reason to exist, and everything else came from that. If people can understand that, I think it's fair. I just feel like it's not like fair playing ground right now because of this, and there's going to be a bunch of degeneracy that happens real soon here. Let's check out on the price of Bitcoin. I'm going to pull them up here on Ostium, by the way. Excellent trading platform. If you guys want to get started trading, highly recommend it. You can trade any and all assets. You can look on the left side, actually. You can see they got the stocks, you got Forex, you got the Bank 7. You can trade literally everything on this platform, and you can see up to 100x, 200x on a lot of these assets. So really, really cool platform. Enjoy using them a ton. Bitcoin's sitting here 109. Oh my gosh. Wow. We're about to go under 109. Have we actually gone below? Oh, wow. We did touch below 109,000. Wow. Well, I guess we did get a bit of a directional decision, didn't we? The last few days we've been in this range, and I said, look, we got to get a decision at some point. And looks like we got that decision, and we've dropped down to this next level. I know a lot of the traders are expecting one level lower, and I imagine it's going to be at least to these levels. And so Bitcoin really, really started to tumble here. A lot of traders getting nervous on the stance of Bitcoin. We're just coming up here really towards the end of the four-year cycle. If you believe in that, I happen to think we're going to have a different story. I don't think it's possible that we could have the exact same four-year cycle play out. What I'll say is I could see us having the four-year cycle and staying with the timetables, but I don't know if I can see a 70% correction in Bitcoin. I hope to God we do this time. First time I've been employed during a bear market if that's what happens. So listen, no matter where you're at in the market, if you're in a good position, you're happy with your Bitcoin position, like that's great, and continue to stack if it goes up. But like if you don't have enough Bitcoin and we happen to crash down, this is quite literally the last chance, I think. If we have one more full revisit down to those lows, we now have confirmation that countries are buying, confirmation that companies are buying, confirmation that Bitcoin is a treasury asset worth holding. These are not speculation anymore. It's confirmed. So there are characteristics that you can attribute to Bitcoin, like the proof of work, like the hard cap supply. There's things that you can attribute to Bitcoin and say this is true. Now we can say the same thing for these institutional interests, for the demand for Bitcoin is here. All right. Bitcoin does not get to over $100,000 without demand. So that's kind of my big push here, is that just watch the price of Bitcoin, get a job if you don't have one, get a second job if you don't have a second job, get a third if you don't have a third job. If we do end up having this full year, this entire correction, then it will be so important because I don't see that ever happening again. Just want to make that big and abundantly clear. And again, if you want to use Ostium, I have a tweet down below. If you look on the stream, the tweet down below, you can use code WolfC and get started here on Ostium. Excellent trading platform again, super easy to use, fantastic stuff. We long-term partners of the show. We really appreciate their time and everything they do. A couple last stories here before we jump. We got Circle considering reversible USDC stablecoin transactions. This to me is absolutely insane. I mean, how does this exist? Like, this is the problem with the stablecoin conversation, is they're having headlines that, like, I don't know how they exist. Like, what do you mean reversible transactions? How are you able to do that? No, you should not be able to even consider that. How are you able to do this? At what point were you able to do this? If this is the case, have you always been able to do this? I don't like these conversations where they're like, we can freeze your thing. We can reverse it. I'm like, brother, no. Like, that's basically why you use the bank and Robinhood. Like, if that's what you're going to use, that's fine. Just use that. But like, there's no point in doing it on these rails like that. Anyways, that's kind of like my big gripe with a lot of the stuff that's going on in crypto. And that's why I want to make sure there's a big difference here. These companies, someone created USDC and built a company around it, and they're making money off fees. Like, that's why they're so successful. So it's just not the same. And I just want to make sure that people who are entering the industry know that, because everything will go up and down. And I don't think it's fair to still call them the same. I just don't think it's fair. And I don't even think it's accurate. I think it's a service to them, to the people who are entering the industry. It's just, you're putting them on the back foot. And so I just keep hammering my fist about this, because Darkside gets, big gun ho about something. And when he does, he goes hard for a certain period of time, and he really stamps that down. And I think that's a good strategy, and I respect him for it. It's hard to do. He probably gets tired of it as well. But it's one of those things that if you think it's important, you think it needs to be had, the conversation needs to be had. And he was talking about paper Bitcoin for weeks. And I was like, dude, you know what? Maybe this is important. And then slowly over a couple of weeks of research, I was like, oh my God, I see why this guy's been screaming about it. It's really important. So anyways, final couple stories here. Unusual trading ahead of crypto treasury deals draws scrutiny from the US regulators. We have SEC reaching out to some of these companies. They're basically saying like, hey, you guys are having these crazy decisions and moments and movements. There's some sketchy behavior happening prior. Do people know about this before? Is there some insider trading going on? Are there any breaches of rules about sharing material, non-public information? A lot of scrutiny here, and this is exactly what happens when you let crypto people come in, is this type of behavior always follows. So again, I'll just keep hammering my fist. There is a difference between the crypto industry and the Bitcoin industry. I don't think there's a problem with either one. I'm just saying, look, Wall Street has decided to bring them in, which means they've been buying and accumulating for years before. They've just now publicly started to say so, because now they're able to. Because I assume because their lowest cost average buy-in is lower than our current prices. I honestly think that's why. Either way, these companies are starting to come in, and it's going to be a crazy time to be alive. Listen, I really appreciate everyone for coming through to the stream. If you haven't already, please do retweet it. It does help us out a ton. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, give us a follow wherever you're at. If you want to use that trading platform, Ostium, use code WolfC. It's down below in the description on YouTube or in the tweet down below the stream. Guys, we'll catch you guys all in the next one. We have another space and stream here starting in just a few minutes. So we'll catch you guys there for that one. Take care.